Good morning and welcome to another episode of Iconic Freedom, the formula. We are setting a standard for accountability, the ownership of your choices, and responsibility, that ability to respond to those choices. Let each care for self and all will be cared for.
It was written by a man called Santiago Pliego, and it's written on a Substack, and the piece is called The Vibe Shift. And the thesis essentially is that people are starting to notice that things are amiss. And the main thing that's amiss is the gap between the reality that they observe and the version of reality presented them by the government, the media, the experts. And this is good. It is long overdue that people are starting to see glimpses of reality. Here's a paragraph from the piece that kind of sums up the idea very nicely, and we're quoting. The vibe shift I'm talking about is the speaking of previously unspeakable truths, the noticing of previously suppressed facts. I'm talking about the feel you get when the walls of propaganda and bureaucracy start to move as you push. The very visible dust kicked up in the air as experts and fact-checkers scramble to hold on to decaying institutions. The cautious but electric rush of energy when dictatorial edifices designed to stifle innovation, enterprise, and thought are exposed or toppled. As we said, so nicely expressed, beautifully written.
I really like this interview that Tucker does with this gentleman, and you're going to see some more of it on this podcast. One of the things that I really liked was his approach of this idea of the black pill, because I've been seeing that out there quite a bit lately. I don't know if it's something you're noticing as well. I did look it up because I wasn't quite sure how it related to everything that, I've said before about taking the red pill or the blue pill. If you've seen the Matrix movies, you know that taking, the blue pill keeps you, dormant and docile, where taking the red pill means that you're open to seeing the reality as it is. So what's interesting about the concept of the black pill is that it was referring to the realization, to the ugly truth of life, that this world is somehow this hostile, unequal place. It favors certain people with certain characteristics, or, their gender or their race or blah, 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 whatever. Okay, so when I'm approaching something like this, and then I look at it and I think, okay, so where is this going? And the whole idea of the black pill, and when you see people saying that they've been black pilled and all this other stuff, is that it's a sneaky way, honestly, of trying to encourage people to claim their right to be a victim. Listen, if you're in reality, you see the rose and you see the thorn. You see both of those. But who applies this subjectivity to the world? You do. You're the one that decides whether or not you're going to see it as a good, bad, right, or wrong. Okay, that's up to you. And if you get emotional about it and you go off the deep end, then you realize that you're an ideology and you're not in reality. We've talked about before how reality is unemotional in its observation. And so, if you're seeing the ugliness in the world, therefore you have no responsibility. And really, that's what this is about. It's this idea of the black pill, is that it is attempting to give you the right and to give you the idea that, hey, you know what? It's okay for you to be a victim in life. And that, it's unfair, and, life isn't grand, and, somebody got better than you, and blah, 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 on it goes. But my point about it, of course, is that you cannot avoid the reality of responsibility. Somehow this message keeps going out there that, you are entitled. And the fact is that you're not entitled. You're not entitled to anything. It's your life. You have to figure it out. No one's coming to save you. No one's going to give you anything. You got to figure it out. And the idea that people are trying to push this ideology of a black pill that says, no, life is unfair, it's unequal, and they're going to be pointing somewhere to say that, somebody is the one that's responsible for all of that. But that would not be true, right? Because we know that we're responsible for our own lives. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for. The upside to this is that when a person is ready to be in this position of seeing the reality as it is and making their way to what is actually happening. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that once they accept a narrative and they've gotten embedded in it, they don't want to hear or see anything differently, right? We've talked about ideology, but it only takes one situation to plant a seed, to introduce and to contradict that narrative. And when you do that, you really are planting that seed. Now, a lot of times people, they don't want to confront the lie. They've accepted it as it is. They don't want to rock their boat. Now, what's interesting to me that I observe in my own existence, but also that I've observed in others, is that once you open up the door just a little tiny bit and you start to step in, I'm seeing this image of, you remember the Wizard of Oz when Dorothy, the house lands and she starts to open that door from the black and white and it opens up to color and she's landed in Oz. And in so many ways, it's like that. It's like that moment of, oh my gosh, I had no idea that any of this existed. And then you start adapting to the different possibilities, right? And what I think is so interesting is that, and I said this last week, that, you have conversations with people where you don't have to push. You don't have to convince, cajole, manipulate. It just becomes more of an interaction of, here's what I know. Here's what I know. I'm going to leave this here, let you think about it. There's no force of any type of conclusions, just presenting a reality for people to consider.
Why I wrote it is because I think a lot of people are noticing the vibe shift, and I'd been kind of keeping tabs on it with my friends and my colleagues for, let's say 9 months or so, a little bit over that, but especially in the last 9 months, not a day goes by that we don't have a conversation or see something online or read a piece or see a crossover of people that we would have never expected to see kind of together. And that would have been sort of inconceivable 5 years ago, even a year and a half ago. And my friends and I sort of started to file this away in a mental folder called the Vibe Shift. And I think a lot of people are sensing that things are changing. Sure, the stakes are high and getting higher. I think the pressure will continue to come and will not relent. But that's cost a lot of people, especially young people, young guys especially, to kind of wake up and decide that they're not going to go along with this anymore, that the world is built and designed in a certain way, and that they're ready to return to reality.
And of course, the only way you return to the reality is you have to start developing accountability and responsibility. Let's face it. That's what this whole podcast is all about, right? Is that you're setting a standard for yourself. You're figuring out what are the qualities that, by taking accountability and responsibility, that you want to create for yourself, that you want to develop, that you want to be a part of the existence that you're enjoying. And when you start to go down this road, it becomes pretty easy, to be honest. It's like, I guess, riding a bike, right? You once you've learned how to do it, then it's pretty easy. You stop thinking about where are the pedals and how do I get on the seat and how do I adjust it and how do I do this and how do I do that. You just get onto the bike and you start riding. And it's amazing how you just kind of breeze through it all. And, you come upon things where you kind of figure it out and you make your way and then off you keep going. And much in the same way about developing your own accountability and your own responsibility to yourself, you will do the same thing. But it doesn't happen if you don't take ownership. And that ownership has to be the ownership of your reality, the ownership of your emotions, the ownership of the actions that you take, and the motivations and the self-interest that you act out of. You have to be able to take ownership of those things. I just had an interesting post on Twitter where Barbara Streisand had posted some, thing where she was, making a comment about the President Trump, getting ready to start his trial. And, she's clearly she doesn't like Trump. Okay, that's fine, whatever. But the contradiction that she lives in, and my response to her post was, for somebody that's been espousing the truth for her entire life and saying how important the truth is, the truth is so important, you seem to be completely ignorant of what the actual truth and reality is. And what is it that makes it that you're ignorant of that truth and reality? You never look to yourself to figure out, could I be mistaken? But you can always guarantee that when a person doesn't see reality, it's because they have not taken ownership of all the things that I just listed, of their choices, their reality, their motivations, their self-interest.
An important part of the vibe shift, maybe not its sole cost, but certainly an important piece of the enabling of the vibe shift was Elon Musk buying Twitter and turning it into X. It's hard to overstate without kind of sounding hyperbolic, but these groups that I'm talking about, disparate groups that are now finding themselves working together, were by design, algorithmically or otherwise, unable to find each other, even as early as 18 months ago. And you couldn't talk online. You couldn't find other people who thought like you or even wanted to ask the same questions as you. And it made it very difficult, very isolating to a very sort of isolating dynamic for people to be online and to find co-belligerents and others who share their mind, their values. I think that pressure will continue to escalate, but Elon has kind of taken an important piece of the puzzle, of the bureaucrats' puzzle, out, completely toppled that sort of Jenga tower, and enabled for a new dynamic online for people to interact and meet each other in ways that really does threaten that monolithic power structure.
The thing that I want to relate to his statement just now is that ideology is illogical, that it is not based on any comprehensive thought. It's based on an agenda. So he's a young kid. He expertly talks about how Elon Musk buying X and kind of, blowing the lid off of that and giving everybody the opportunity for free speech, it really helps to dismantle this, and it starts to crumble this agenda. Basically, the insane do not have the capability of having a comprehensive thought. They don't have the ability of having comprehensive thinking. And there is a staunchness, there is a almost, I'm trying to think of the word, it would be a defiance in wanting to protect the ideology, because they don't want to hear or see anything other than what it is. I look at it now and I just think these people are in their ocean of emotion. I mean, they're just out there in their little boat and all they're doing is floating around and they're just having all their emotions and their feelings, and they're not really paying attention to the choices they're making and the outcomes they're experiencing.
The vibe shift is looking at the world around us, refusing to take the black pill, and choosing to build instead. That's an important piece of the vibe shift. And yes, it puts me in a good mood when I see other guys building great, positive things.
The enthusiasm that Santiago has and his positivity is, I think it's inspiring, and I think it's great that somebody of his age, that he is interacting with people his age, maybe younger, maybe a little bit older, but mostly younger than him or around his age, and they're finding this vibe shift. They're denouncing, they're denying, they're not taking the black pill. They don't need any kind of vaccination in their world against, whatever the rhetoric is that wants to keep them down, that wants to keep them a victim. And I would almost say that in drawing this to a conclusion at this point is that, the black pill is a pill of victimization. You can take it and then you can live that the rest of your life, and you can avoid responsibility, you can avoid accountability, and you can see yourself as a victim if that's what you want to do. But do you really want to stay in that kind of life? Because a lot of people want to hold on to that identity. They want to hold on to the identity. You think about that. Look at the people that, they have cancer and, they go through this horrible, situation where, they're trying to get better and all these other things, right? And I get it. But then they want to hold on to it. They want to hold on to it like it's an identity in them. That it wasn't just something that they managed and they moved on from. No, they want to hold on to it. They want to keep reminding themselves of it. They want to go on these 5K walks and they want to do all this other tomfoolery, and they just want to keep bringing it up again and again and again. When I was a counselor, I would do therapy sessions with groups, and when people would start going into their fantasy about their past behavior using drugs, people would call them on it in the circle. They would sit there and go, "Man, what are you doing? Where are you going to? You're sitting here trying to drudge up, the past, because you want to relive it." Well, maybe they wanted to relive it because they enjoyed it. But what is it with people that want to keep reliving the past where it provided for them something of a negative consequence? Something that they would view as negative, something that they would view as a situation that brought them down, that made it difficult for their life, that, created all of this angst and anger. What is it that keeps you in that particular spot? My thought is that are you regretting that it's over? Are you regretting that your strife and your angst is finished? And what are these byproducts that you're deriving from the experience of reliving it over and over and over again? Don't you want to be out of the experience? Isn't that what most people are trying to do when something bad happens in their minds? That they want to be out of the experience, they want to be liberated from it? But how many efforts and how much energy are you putting into reliving it, replaying it, identifying with it? You are never exiting the experience. And when people are attached to an identity, whatever the appearance of their identity, they want to avoid a productive and responsible life. They're trying to avoid a productive and responsible life. And that music means that once again, we are at the end of another podcast. Hey, thanks so much for joining me this weekend. I hope you enjoyed it. Please share this with your family and friends. You never know if it's going to help them along. Hit the like button if you would. Subscribe to my podcast if you would like to do so. Check out my book at lulu.com. And I will see you next week. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for.